Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Connection, coming to you from Spirit and Truth Sanctuary. Let's begin this morning with our morning blessing. Spirit of Truth, we give thanks today for our connection in this time of togetherness, for our sameness as well as our contrast, and for the light we reflect to one another and see in one another. We give thanks for the holy that holds us and for the humanity that always brings us back to the holy. We ask that our happiness, our peace, and our joy now be woven into the fabric of the world around us, and that it serve as nourishment to feed the heart of the collective. In the name and nature of the Christ. Amen. And so it is. All right, on to our quotes. The first one. Love is the only thing we can carry with us when we go. Next, one good deed is worth 1,000 prayers. That's by Zarathustra. Next, love is the triumph of imagination over intelligence. H.L. Mencken. Next, from Rebecca Springer, day by day we are building for eternity. Every gentle word, every generous thought, every unselfish deed will become a pillar of eternal beauty in the life to come. Next, we have one by Maya Angelou. Nothing will work unless you do. Next, the size of your problems is nothing compared with your ability to solve them. Don't overestimate your problems or underestimate yourself. I love that one. Next, inhale the future, exhale the past. And the last one, truth is like surgery. It hurts, but it cures. Lies are like painkillers. They give instant relief, but have side effects that last forever. Wow, that last quote was a powerful one, wasn't it? I think that it bears repeating. Truth is like surgery. It hurts, but it cures. Lies are like painkillers. They give instant relief, but have side effects that last forever. So why is this true? Because surgery actually gets to the root cause of the issue and either cuts out something that is not supposed to be there or repairs whatever it is that needs repairing at the causal level. Painkillers only deal with the surface symptoms. Today will be an encore presentation with a few things added in, of course, as always, of a teaching that I did originally back in 2018 on one of the most influential books I have ever read, and I have read a lot of books. This is definitely one of the standouts in my life that has shaped my thinking and my life philosophy. And just like that quote, it goes right to the root of the issue of why the world is the way it is. Now, it's just a theory, and you may not agree with all of it. I'm not sure I agree with all of it regarding his premise of how we got where we are, although I do agree with a lot of it. But I agree 100% with what he proposes as a solution to the state we find ourselves in at present. And he presents this solution in the form of 4 agreements, which is also the title of the book, The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. So this book is based on the theory that everything that surrounds us in the physical material world, as well as the rules and the laws we use to navigate through our physical world, has been created through the power of humans agreeing together for it to be the way it is. He sees society as, and this is a quote, the collective dream of billions of smaller personal dreams, which together create the dream of a family, the dream of a community, the dream of a country, and finally, the dream of the whole of humanity. Okay, I want to stop right here and interject some thoughts about this that I got from Dr. Christina Lopes, because a lot of people, even within the spiritual, so-called enlightened circles, believe that the world is dominated and run by a small group of rich people for whom there are different names. Some people call it the New World Order. Some people refer to it as the elites. Some people call them the Illuminati. And they believe that this group are pulling the strings and controlling all the world events to which the rest of us are subject. But Dr. Christina does not believe this. Her view, and one that I agree with as well, is that the world is the way it is because of the individual contributions of the 7.8 billion people that are in it. Each of us make choices every day that contribute to the collective reality. And that's what Don Miguel Ruiz is saying as well, that there's no evil cabal who meets together every year in Switzerland somewhere to decide how horrible they can make the world for the rest of us, and how wonderful they can make it for themselves. Whether in your opinion the world is horrible or beautiful is the product of our collective agreement. And I didn't have this written down, but it kind of just struck me that belief in this cabal of evil people that is running the show, that's just another form of the devil. We've just created another thing to blame. But instead of it being one entity known as the devil that we blame everything horrible and bad on, we've just transferred that to this group of people who we believe everything horrible and evil comes from. So it's instead of, as Dr. Christina Lopes and Don Miguel Ruiz are saying, no, the collective reality as it is, the world is the way that it is because of the choices all of us have made collectively. So in other words, he believes that all reality as we know it and all the institutions that go along with it is just a creation of our collective minds, and everything exists only because we agree that it does. For instance, let's take the color blue. How do we know what the color blue is? Because when we are little, our mom or dad showed us something and attached the word blue to it. And then our teachers at school reinforced it as a fact that, yes, that was the color blue. And every other child we knew was also taught that that was the color blue. And we all collectively agreed on it. And so it became reality. But according to this theory, if we had called that color by a different name, as long as we all agreed that that's what it was, then that's what it would be. This concept goes all the way back to the book of Genesis and the creation story, where God told Adam to name all the animals. And whatever Adam decided to call each animal is what God would also call it. And so the agreement between Adam and God is what each animal became, or at least it's what it was known by. And that is a powerful principle. Two powerful principles, actually. The power of creation coupled with the power of agreement. God created these things, these beings, animals, except they weren't called that at the time because they didn't have names yet. And then he gave Adam the power and authority to give each one a name. Not only did he say Adam could name them, he went a step further and said, Adam, whatever you call these beings, I will agree with you, and that's what I'll call them too. And through the power of our agreement, that's what they will become. And Don Miguel Ruiz is saying in this book that that's the way everything comes to be what it is, except he concentrates much more on the agreement aspect than the creation aspect. Actually, what he's saying is that our agreement is what creates the reality. His view is similar to the philosophy of deism, which is the belief that God created the world, the universe, and then he handed it to us and said, here, this is yours. Make something of it. Figure it out. Do what you want. And then he stopped intervening. That's what deism says. It's the belief that God gave us the world, put some universal laws in place, and then stepped back and left us to it. Now, personally, I believe that God or Spirit is still very much involved with us in our daily lives. But I also believe the balance of that is that he's not going to do everything for us. I do believe that the world runs by universal laws and that there are many things God expects us to do for ourselves. But the question this book addresses is, who made the current rules that we're living by? And we today still living only by those universal laws that God originally set up, or have we in our human collective consciousness created more rules and laws beyond those that God intended? Is the current reality we're living in only our reality because we have all agreed it is, by virtue of the fact that God gave us the power and honors that law of agreement? That's the question he's asking. When humans get involved in things, they always seem to get more complicated. Have you ever noticed that whenever humans put their hands in anything, the simplest thing can become completely complicated? My brother often talks about how God gave Moses 10 simple rules or commandments by which a peaceful, workable society could exist. And by the time humans got done with it, those 10 simple commandments got expanded to over 600 Levitical laws, making it close to impossible for anybody to actually keep completely. And so by the time Jesus came along, it had become so complicated that he had to tear all of that down. He had to say, I know you have heard of old, but I say to you, in order to get to the heart of the matter. He had to get out his surgeon's knife and get to the cause. And he finally simplified it all the way back down to 2 laws. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. There, done. Because he knew if everyone would just follow those 2 laws, there would be no need for the 10 commandments, much less the 600 extra Levitical laws that got tacked on later, because most of those were about things that really don't matter and that God doesn't care about anyway. And the ones that do matter, like don't kill and don't steal, would be covered if you just loved God perfectly and loved your neighbor as yourself. So much easier. But as I said, humans always seem to complicate things, and that's the point of this book. Its basic premise being that the reality we now know and are living in is basically a dream world that we have created, as opposed to the original world that God created. And the picture he paints of this world, of this reality we have created for ourselves, is pretty bleak. I'm going to read, that's just a warning before I start reading from the book. He says, what you are seeing and hearing right now is nothing but a dream. Dreaming is the main function of the mind, and it dreams 24 hours a day, awake or asleep. Before any of us who are alive today were born, the humans before us created a big outside dream that we call society's dream, or the dream of the planet. The dream of this planet includes all of society's rules, its beliefs, its laws, its religions, its different cultures and ways to be, its governments, schools, social events, and even holidays. This outside dream has so many rules that when a new human is born, the adults feel they must introduce these rules into his or her mind because we think they will not be able to survive without knowing them. Okay, so do you see what he's saying there? That we're born with natural instincts, but all the humans before us have created so many extra rules that we must now live by because we've all agreed to for so long, that we now have to teach things on top that sometimes even go against our natural instincts, because a human baby cannot, as it grows, cannot survive unless they learn all these new rules. So why do we believe that? Why do we believe this is the way it is? Because that's what we were taught. Our parents and our teachers and our society taught us that the rules and taught us that these rules, and they made us believe them, and they made us believe that we could not survive without them. So we in turn believe our children will not be able to survive without the same knowledge. All the rules they must follow in order to navigate this reality which we have created for ourselves through the power of our agreement. The book continues on. The dream uses mom and dad, the schools, and religion to teach us the dream. The adults around us put information into our minds through repetition. That is the way we learn everything we know. In this way, we learned a whole reality, a whole dream. how to behave in society, what to believe and what not to believe, what is acceptable and what is not, what is good and what is bad, what is beautiful and what is ugly, what is right and what is wrong. It was all there already before you got here. All that knowledge, all those rules and concepts. It was not your choice to speak the language you speak. You didn't choose the religion or race or moral values you were born into. They were already present in your culture before you arrived, based on agreements humans who arrived here before you made with each other, and you were never a part of even the smallest of these agreements that you are now expected to live by. Now, time out. This is where I disagree with him a little. I believe that we have some agency before we come here, that there are certain things we do get to choose. But I do agree with him that once you're here, all the rules surrounding those choices that we've made, like what race, country, whatever that we're born into, the rules, I agree with him on this fact that they're already here and there's nothing we can do about that. So, and that they have been in place for a long, long time. As children, we believe everything adults say. We agree with them, and as soon as we agree, we believe in and accept their version of reality. Once we do this, our faith in this reality is so strong that it controls our whole life. We didn't choose these beliefs, and at around 2 years of age, something within our human nature may have wanted to rebel against them. Okay, that's what everybody refers to as the terrible twos. That's when we start saying, no, I don't want to follow these rules. This is going against my instinct. But we are not strong enough. And because the adults around us are so much bigger and stronger, the only thing to be done is to surrender to these beliefs by way of our agreement. This process is called domestication. This domestication is so strong, the rewards for agreeing so good, and the punishment for not agreeing so painful, that at a certain point in our life, we no longer need anyone to domesticate us. We are so well trained that we become our own domesticators. Now, if you'll remember, some of you who have been in this ministry for years and years and years will remember a famous sermon that Pastor Bob Gass used to preach about the bear that was in captivity, was in a cage for many, many years. And then someone came and liberated him and put him in this preserve that was built specifically for animals who had been caged their whole lives. And now that they could run free and they had miles and miles and acres of land, said, but that bear would go 12 steps forward and 12 steps back. And he never left that path. Because why? Because for so many years of his life in that cage, that's all he could take, was 12 steps forward and 12 steps back. So even though there was this whole beautiful world around him now, he had already domesticated himself. He had gotten to the place where he did not need the bars anymore. And Don Miguel Ruiz is saying that's what we have done to ourselves. Breaking the rules in this, wait a minute, no, I skipped ahead a paragraph. The belief system we have been given of the dream world is like a book of law that rules our mind without question. Whatever is in the book of law is our truth. We base all of our judgments on this book of law, even if they go against our own inner nature. Breaking the rules in this book of law causes us to feel fear because it has become our security, because it has become our truth through the process of domestication. And therefore, anything that challenges what we have come to believe makes us feel unsafe and insecure. Even if our book of law is wrong, it still makes us feel safe. All right, time out again. At this point, I want to insert something we've talked quite a bit about. The concept and the idea that it wasn't God who demanded blood in order for mankind to be saved. It was we ourselves who demanded the shedding of blood for the remission of sin through Jesus' death on the cross. Why is that true? Because we all agreed at some point that that was what our truth was going to be. We demanded blood to atone for wrongdoing, not God. But we believed it so strongly because it was what had become our book of law and therefore our truth. It was a truth we all agreed on, and therefore God honored it because we said it was reality, not because it was his reality. Just like the animals are named what they are because that's what Adam named them, God didn't name them, but God honored the names that Adam gave them. Similarly, God didn't require that Jesus shed his blood and die in order for us to have a relationship with him. But because that's what we decided and agreed on, he honored Jesus' sacrifice. Now, I certainly don't want to offend anyone who has served in the military or who has family members who have. So let me start by saying I thank everyone for their service, and I believe it is an honorable thing to serve because you believe you are doing the right thing. You believe you are defending and protecting the lives and the freedom of your fellow man. But why do we all believe that? Because somewhere way back in the history of mankind, we agreed that war and all the violence that comes with it is an acceptable way to settle things. I don't believe war was ever God's idea or in his original plan for us, but we all agreed it was going to be a part of our reality, and so it is. And although, as I said, I thank all the people who have served for everything they've sacrificed, wouldn't it be a beautiful thing if we could thank them for something else, for making a different kind of contribution? Wouldn't it be a beautiful thing if we had never agreed that war was acceptable? I think so. In the words of John Lennon, you may say I'm a dreamer, but I don't think I'm the only one on that. It's very hard to even wrap your mind around a world with no war because it's been the reality for so long. But again, that's Don Miguel Ruiz's whole point. It's only our reality because we've agreed that it is. Back to the book. In the dream of this planet, or in other words, in the reality we have created, it is normal for humans to suffer, to live in fear, and to create emotional dramas. The outside dream is not a pleasant one. It is a dream of violence, of fear, of war, and of injustice. The personal dreams of humans will vary, but globally it is mostly a nightmare because that is what we have created it to be. Fear controls the outside dream. If we compare the dream of human society with the description of hell that many different religions all around the world have promulgated, we find they are exactly the same. We are living in the dream of hell. No human can condemn another to hell because we are already there. Others can put us into a deeper hell, but only if we allow them to through our agreement. So there it is. Now that I've completely bummed everyone out with this picture of hell on earth that we have created for ourselves, we can begin the process of learning how we can climb up out of it, okay? I'm not going to leave you down there. So according to Don Miguel Ruiz, we, through our agreements with each other, have largely created a hell on earth for ourselves, a dream world where war and violence and fear and suffering are the norm, and where we've all been domesticated into the beliefs and reality of the people who came before us, and that freedom is just an illusion. But what do we know? We know how powerful our thoughts are. We know that we can make ourselves sick by negative thinking, but the flip side of that is that we can heal ourselves through positive thinking, right? We know this. The same is true of the power of agreement. If we have created this dream world of a hell on earth by all agreeing that that's the truth, then we can go back and recreate a heaven on earth by that same power of agreement. I'm going to read again now from the book. Thousands of years ago, the Toltec people were known throughout southern Mexico as men and women of knowledge. Anthropologists have spoken of them as a nation or race, but in fact, they were scientists and artists who formed a society to explore and conserve the spiritual knowledge and practices of the ancient ones. They came together as masters, also called naguals, and students at Teotihuacan, the ancient city of the pyramids outside Mexico City, known as the place where man becomes God. Toltec knowledge arises from the same essential unity of truth as all sacred traditions found around the world. Though it is not a religion, it honors all spiritual masters who have taught on the earth. While it does embrace spirit, it is most accurately described as a way of life. And so basically, these Toltec masters recognized the power of agreement and created 4 basic agreements that they believed would break us out of the dream world that the humans before them had created and that they viewed as a hell on earth. And that they believed that these 4 agreements would also bring us into a state of heaven on earth. So, without further ado, let's go to the 4 agreements. Here they are. He gives a general agreement and then a few specifics to go with it. It's not complicated, but what do we always say? But just because it's simple doesn't mean that it's easy. The first one, be impeccable with your word. Speak with integrity. Say only what you mean. Avoid using the word to speak against yourself or to gossip against others. Always use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. So that's number 1. Agreement number 2, don't take anything personally. Nothing others do is because of you. What others say and do is a projection of their own reality, their own dream. When you are immune to the opinions and actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering. Okay, that reminds me of a good quote to go with that is, people will love you, people will hate you, and none of it will have anything to do with you. Agreement number 3, don't make assumptions. Find the courage to ask questions and to express what you really want. Communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings, sadness, and drama. With just this one agreement, you can completely transform your life. Agreement number 4, always do your best. Knowing that your best is going to change from moment to moment. It will be different when you are healthy as opposed to sick. Under any circumstance, simply do your best and you will avoid self-judgment, self-abuse, and regret. So, those may seem, as I said, very simple, but I promise you they are not easy. But sometimes the simplest things, the smallest changes can make the biggest difference. So, to wrap that part up, this is what the author himself says about this book and what he calls Toltec wisdom. You need a very strong will in order to adopt the 4 agreements. Again, uncomplicated is not the same as easy. But if you can begin to live your life with these agreements in place, the transformation will be amazing. You will see the drama of hell disappear right before your very eyes. And instead of living in a dream of hell, you will be creating a new dream, your own personal dream of heaven. Okay, so right at the end there, he shifted a bit from emphasizing the collective and the reality we have created as such to the personal. And I think that's key because even with all his talk about an explanation of this dream world we've all created together through our corporate agreement, he knows that all each of us can do is change our own individual behavior. Every one of those 4 agreements addresses something each of us has to do personally, because each of us changing and controlling our own individual behavior is what will ultimately change the agreements we make with others, which is what will in turn create or recreate our collective reality. But the first and most important agreement each of us must have is with ourselves. So what am I talking about when I say that? How is it possible to agree with yourself? Those words heard by ears that are only anchored in this earthly existence sound a little crazy. Agree with yourself. How can you not be in agreement with yourself? Of course you are. But are you? If that were always the case, there would be no such concept as inner conflict. But we're all very familiar with how that feels, aren't we? We all know how it feels when our words are not matching our thoughts and when our actions are not backing up our words. We feel bad. We feel off. There is conflict within. Where is that coming from? Let's go back to the very basic meaning of the word agreement. In order to have an agreement, there must be at least 2 parties. So when we're talking about agreeing with ourselves, we've got to be talking about our lower human self and our higher divine self, or as some refer to it, our Christed self. That part of us that has recognized and embodied our Christ consciousness. Those two selves have to come into agreement in order to create a new reality. I heard a man named Brian Scott talking about this the other day in a piece he called "You Are the Word." And he began with the scripture in John 1, and it's one of my very favorite scriptures of the whole Bible. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. And then it goes on, about and nothing was created without the Word. Without it, nothing was made. So if you pay attention, though, to the grammar there, you see a split. The Word was God, and the very next part says, and the Word was with God. Okay, it was one, and then it became more than one. And I like to think of that in terms of the process of creation. First, there was God, and then God wanted to experience himself other than himself or herself. So the thoughts of God, the logic, what we refer to as the logos, the word, came out of him and created every other being that is. So we are all a part of that original word. It's not just Jesus who became or recognized that he was the living word. We are that also. We are the living word also when we come into that realization. So this guy, Brian Scott, in this talk he was giving, took everyone in his audience through a short exercise that is very powerful. And I believe it's one way for us to get our human self into agreement with our Christed self. I want to read it to you now. He begins, very simply put, just say these words with me. I am the Word through my body. I am the Word. I am the Word through my vibration. I am the Word. I am the Word through the knowing of myself as the Word. I am the Word. He continues, when you make statements like these, it brings you into the frequency of the Christ. You are aligning your body with the power of the Word itself. Now, time out. Now, all of us who've been raised in Christianity, when we say the power of the Word, we automatically think of that book that's called the Bible. But the living Word is not the Bible. The living Word is that first offshoot of the thoughts of God when he decided he wanted to create something other than himself. All right? So when we say the power of the Word, that's what we're talking about, not the Bible. This idea, or we could say this agreement then, becomes thoroughly embedded in our energetic field. He continues, when you speak these words, many of you will feel a lightening of your spirit, your frequency lifting, because it is a shift in your energy. It is a healing. All the worry and concern goes away, and there's a release and a freedom that you feel in your heart. What this is really doing is aligning your own field to the blueprint and to the pattern of the Christ. And everything within you is made whole because the Christ is always whole. The only thing that stops you from being whole is the belief that you cannot be, and those things you have placed before or in the way of your soul's growth. But when you claim and declare that you are the Word, all of that shifts out of the way, and you come into agreement with your higher self and who you were always created to be. When you understand that you are the Word, you come into your own light. Whatever pain or obstacle stands in the way of this agreement, just keep declaring to it, I am the Word. Through this practice, you become an active participant in your own healing through understanding that you are aligning your will with the will of your Creator. When he said that, I was reminded of our definition of humility. True humility is just agreeing with God that you are who he says you are and that you are who he created you to be. And now we've come all the way back around to where we started today with Don Miguel Ruiz. That agreement is what causes creation to happen, both on the individual and on the collective level. So when we agree that we are the Christ, that we are the living Word, just as Jesus was, we create for ourselves a whole new reality, a whole new dream. And that agreement then expands to the collective. So in essence, these 4 agreements are the same thing to the dream world that Jesus' message was to those 600 plus Levitical laws that man created through his agreements from the 10 Commandments. Jesus knew that if we would just follow the 2 simple commands, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself, then all those other rules and commandments would be unnecessary. Likewise, if we follow these 4 agreements, be impeccable with your word. Let's see what we can go back. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions. Always do your best. Don Miguel Ruiz knew, and the Toltec people knew, if we could just follow those 4 agreements and most of all, get our human selves in agreement with our Christ selves, then we can escape any hell our previous agreements have created. Amen? Amen. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow night at 6:30 for our continuing Wednesday night series, Brene Brown's The Gifts of Imperfection, and on Sunday as always. Until then, I love you. Be at peace. Have a great week.